This is a spokesperson for the Harris campaign.
Good evening, Howard.
Let's listen in at Howard University in Washington, D.C.
Good evening, HU. I want to say good evening to all of the Harris campaign, the campaign family. Thank you for all that you have done. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in the promise of America. We still have votes to count. We still have states that have not been called yet. We will continue overnight to fight to make sure that every vote is counted, that every voice has spoken. So you won't hear from the Vice President tonight, but you will hear from her tomorrow. She will be back here tomorrow to address not only the HU family, not only to address her supporters, but to address the nation. So thank you. We believe in you. May God bless you. May God keep you. And go HU and go Harris. Thank you all.
Well, that was Howard University, the headquarters for Kamala Harris, which has got to be disappointing for the people who've gathered there tonight wanting to hear from the vice president, even if she's not able to say with any kind of certainty what's happening right now. But there he's just saying not tonight. Maybe tomorrow. It may be tomorrow before we get an official decision, because we know that in some states the the counting does not actually begin until all the votes are in, and because polls had closed somewhat recently.
When you say tomorrow, do you mean today?
Kamala Harris could go there tomorrow, meaning today, Wednesday, but I know who wasn't going to be there. If I were a supporter up at Howard University in Northwest DC, waiting to hear from my leader, who I've supported for months, and waited up with to see the returns, and she didn't even bother to stick around to address me, to say, hey, thank you for all that you've done. I wasn't going to be there the next day or a few hours later. I wasn't coming back. How disrespectful. That's some sore loser stuff right there. Whether all the numbers were in, I mean, this happens every election. All the numbers aren't going to be in by the time you're supposed to give a concession speech. She gave no concession speech to Donald Trump. Just went home and left her people there at Howard University. See you later. I'll come back when more of the numbers are in. Listen, losing ain't easy. And we're going to get into why I feel she lost. This isn't going to be some deep dive. I stayed up to watch the election, even though I promised myself I was not going to. But I stayed up and watched the returns. And I know that losing is not easy. Losing is very difficult, especially when you're in such a public space as she was. But many people have lost before and been more gracious. So I was very disappointed to see her send one of her campaign workers out, whoever this gentleman is, I didn't get his name, to address the crowd of supporters who were waiting for her. But this is typical. My name is Rogan. This is ThisBahamianGyal. On my platform, I do social commentary and reaction videos, and I encourage my audience to have private conversations in public. The people have spoken, and they spoke loudly and clearly. Donald Trump is now the president-elect. He will be the 47th president of the United States after a very long and arduous battle, surviving assassination attempts. This man almost had his head blown open on television a few months ago. And I think back on all that he has been through and the fact that so many people were celebrating that moment when he was shot because they hate this man so much, right? I'm not going to hate anyone so much. I don't care who you are, political adversary. I'm not going to hate anyone so much that I'm going to celebrate that. But that's exactly what people did. And I think this loss, which was a very decided victory for Trump, this loss is really an indictment on the Democratic Party. And I think they're going to have to do a lot of introspection. That's if they have it in them to do this introspection. Because they thought they could just install a candidate who was not very popular and that it was going to go over well with a lot of voters. And clearly it did not. Calling Donald Trump a fascist and a racist, calling black men and black women white supremacists and sellouts, getting mad at people because they did not want the borders open, because they wanted a stronger economy, one where they could go to the food store and shop and not have to decide between putting gas in their car or buying groceries or taking care of their families. All those things were downplayed. The American voting public were told, never mind the fact that this border is open, never mind the fact that you can't afford to feed yourselves or your family, never mind the fact, no, just focus on the fact that Donald Trump is such an atrocious man. When voters have been saying for months, ever since Kamala Harris was ushered to the position that she's in or was in as the candidate succeeding Joe Biden, they've been saying, we don't like her. We don't want her. Even some Democrats didn't want her. Even Democrats, if you talk to them, they're being honest. A lot of them didn't vote for Kamala Harris. They voted against Donald Trump. And so it comes as no surprise to me that he won. Now, I didn't expect for it to be a blowout. I didn't expect for him to take the Electoral College votes. What did I see here on USA Today? Give me one sec. Yep, the former president won battleground states such as Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Georgia, with Michigan, Nevada, and Arizona leaning his way as well as of Wednesday morning. So he didn't take all of them just yet by the time I'm recording this video. So we'll see what happens. But that's a hell of a decided victory. And I think it really just goes to show that you cannot bully people into voting for a candidate. You cannot shame them into voting for a candidate. You cannot white supremacist them out, call them white supremacists and think that that's going to cause them to lean into your candidate. People didn't care about that. They cared about their own, their homes, and they cared about this country. This, for me, really is a case study into what happens when you talk down to people. You treat them like garbage. As a matter of fact, you tell them that they're garbage. You treat them like pariahs, and you take them for granted. We had a former president in the form of Barack Obama chastising black men just a few weeks ago. And if you haven't seen that, it's right here on my channel. I did a video on that, and I thought that was incredibly disappointing that he would do that when black men have always shown up for the Democratic Party, chastising them like little boys, saying that the reason why they didn't want to vote for Kamala Harris was because she is a female, as if that's the only reason there are black men saying, I'm not doing the identity politics this time around. I'm hurting. My family is hurting. And I'm seeing illegal immigrants walk into this country. And you have a vice president who just doesn't seem to care to want to close this border. She made constant excuses when she wasn't ducking questions. Trump really did a great job. I mean, you got to give people their props. You got to be fair. He did a great job in just going everywhere. Since Trump has run for president, he has been in the lion's den in many organizations, many news organizations. They haven't always been very kind to him. Sometimes they were right to grill him the way that they did because he has made some serious missteps. He's said some really dumb things over the years. He said some insulting and hurtful things over the years, and he rightfully deserved a lot of the backlash that he got. But I've always said, you can criticize someone when they're doing wrong, and you can also pat them on the back when they're doing right. And I just didn't see that degree of fairness when it came to him. When it came to Kamala Harris, I saw a lot of shielding. And this, for me, really just shows you the power of not only the people, because a lot of times people think that their vote doesn't matter. People say, oh, my one vote, it doesn't matter. I'm going to vote for the couch. I'm going to stay home. This election should tell you what happens when people get sick and tired and they really exercise their democratic right to use their vote to vote for whatever candidate they want. Your vote is not to be taken for granted. Sometimes it could come down to one vote. It really can. And I also noticed something too about this election cycle. And I don't know if you guys noticed it as well. Is that I don't think a lot of people really tuned into legacy media the way that they did in years past. Of course, you have your old faithfuls who will always stay glued to the CNNs, the MSNBCs, the Foxes, and that won't go away. You'll always have that core group of people who tune into that. But I found a lot of people, like when I converse with people, it's I get my news from YouTube, or I listen to the podcast, or I go online, I see what people are saying. I kind of get a feel for how people are reacting to this election. I just saw like this shrinking away from legacy media because they feel like legacy media just cannot be trusted. I look at the fact that when Donald Trump had his scandal with Stormy, the porn star, it was everywhere. Everywhere. And here we had Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, being accused by a lawyer, and this was in the Daily Mail because it wasn't everywhere, of physical violence. And that was downplayed like nothing I've ever seen before. And I think people at the end of the day just really started to see the play that was going on here. You know, we talk about Kamala Harris's performance on the campaign trail, and she didn't have a long time to campaign, but I think that's all the more reason why she should have been in so many other places. I felt like she spent more than a month, I think it was like 40 days or so, just kind of hiding out from the media rather than hitting the ground running, rather than going on every talk show that she could go on. This is serious business. You had to be willing to talk to everyone, enemy territory as well. And it was only when people started saying, oh, she wouldn't even go on Fox, or she wouldn't even go on this show, she wouldn't even go on that show, that her team started to say, okay, we'll go on here. But it was like such tight parameters, for how she would go on these shows. Joe Rogan famously invited her on his platform. He had Donald Trump on for 3 hours. She didn't want to do 3 hours. I think she wanted to do an hour, and he had to come and fly to her. And he was like, my show performs better when it's in my studio, and I'm happy to fly you out. Not a peep. So you want everybody to bend to you, accommodate you, but you're not willing to go on these shows that are going to give you hard questions. You know, these softball questions, the showing up on Saturday Night Live, which I don't have an issue with, to be honest with you, her showing up on SNL, but stop. If you're going to run for president of the United States, you got to be willing to just go and talk to some people who don't want you, who don't want to talk to you every single day, because that's what the country is made up of, people who voted for you and people who did not vote for you. So you're going to have to be willing to reach out to other people. And I think that's where Donald Trump really succeeded, because he just was going, the man was driving garbage trucks. He was inside the McDonald's. He was on Joe Rogan's platform. He was on so many other platforms that don't really care for him. He had to operate in an environment after he was shot where people were celebrating his being shot and crying over the fact that he wasn't assassinated. That has to take a mental toll on anybody. I mean, even the strongest of us, I don't even know how he keeps going, to be honest with you. And that's just calling it as it is. You know, Obama didn't do any favors to this Harris campaign, in my estimation. Also, I don't think Michelle Obama did any favors as well. To go on a stage and tell the women in the audience that, you know, your vote is sacred, it's private, which it is. It absolutely is. It is sacred and private. But what she was advocating for, I felt, was for women to lie to their spouses, to lie to their mates, the people who they lay down next to, lie to them, all just to get Kamala Harris elected. I'm going to create a problem, a division in my marriage for Kamala Harris, who couldn't even be bothered to show up to say thank you to the people who worked hard for her, who went hard for her. I was watching CNN, MSNBC, and you know, you just see the faces at the beginning were so happy, and then you just saw the panic in their eyes. Just saw the panic in their eyes. I flipped over to Roland Martin, who was sitting there with a bunch of folks, and I'm like looking at the team, and I'm like, this is precisely why the Democrats lost. These attitudes right here that I'm watching on this platform, because you don't get it. Even in the aftermath of this blowout, you still don't get it. Kamala Harris also made serious missteps and mistakes by bringing on these celebrities on the stage. Let me tell you something. I'm not rich. A lot of people are not rich. I'm not even close to rich yet. I got to put that yet in because it's coming, right? But the fact of the matter is, I cannot relate to celebrities. They live in a completely different orbit than I do. The things that impact me, you know, going to the grocery store, and I always tell people, I remember my mom was here recently visiting, and I went to the food store and I spent like $148 on groceries. And if I tell you what I came back home with, it was like a nothing burger. One piece of meat, a bunch of vegetables, water, some crackers, tuna. It was just like, when I was looking at the groceries, I was like, what is this? Cardi B might say, oh, groceries have gone up, but it doesn't affect her. It affects someone like me. And I know it affects a lot of people who are watching this program today. It affects you. when you have to make those decisions. Imagine a family that has multiple kids and children eat like it's nobody's business. It affects them. Beyonce's daughter doesn't, or children don't have to go to a public school. They can go to the best private schools ever. Watch my video with a Chicago teacher who's talking about what he's dealing with in Chicago. I thought Chicago might have flipped. I mean, not Chicago, Illinois. I thought Illinois would have flipped, but they stayed Democrat. And just listen to what that teacher had to say about what he and so many other teachers deal with. So these celebrities don't have to deal with the food bill the way we do. They don't have to deal with the gas bill. It might be an inconvenience, but it ain't going to hurt them. Their children get to go to the best schools. All right? They get to live in their mansions behind gates with security guards. They're not susceptible or as easily susceptible to a lot of the crime that a lot of us are. When I think about these young women who were killed by illegal migrants in this country, buildings, apartment complexes being taken over, which I still maintain to this day has been downplayed tremendously. People were sick of this. I literally overheard, I was in a restaurant and it was a woman, she's a Democratic supporter, and she and her friends were talking rather loudly about the fact that abortion is the issue of the day. Abortion is the issue of the day. Nobody cares about the border. And I'm like, ooh, now it wasn't my business, so I didn't get into it. But I was just sitting there like, wow, how wrong they are. I don't care about abortion. I don't support abortion. I said in my last video, I don't support abortion, but I'm not going to strip you of your right. I'm not going to strip you of your right to do it. But that's not a big deal for me. That's not a concern for me. This border that people downplay and think it's not a big deal, that's a big deal for me. And it's insulting to me as an immigrant who came into this country legally. So it's like, I don't know if people just deliberately put their head in the sand, buried their heads in the sand and felt like, oh no, this is the issue of the day, or they maintained their bubble. They stayed in their echo chamber, surrounded by people who think like them constantly. And so they have no idea what other people are feeling, what they're thinking. You got to surround yourself with, listen to me. I have so many people who disagree with me on so many things on any given day. It's hard for me to be in an echo chamber. And I wouldn't have it any other way, because that's how you learn. You learn from other people. You understand what makes them tick. You understand what makes them angry. You understand what makes them, what they feel passionate about. And a lot of people feel passionate about this country and they see that it has gone downhill and they needed some course correction. I was very proud to see Dr. Jill Stein. She got like 500,000 votes. Same thing for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I believe that Trump said that RFK Jr. is going to have, I believe he's going to have a place in his ranks. I don't know in which capacity, but I know that he's going to work with him because, you know, RFK Jr. had endorsed him. And Dr. Jill Stein, I felt like she did a great job. I really did. Now, she didn't win enough votes to secure the presidency. Her name wasn't even on many of the ballots. You had to write her in. So celebrity endorsements mean nothing to me. Nothing. I would have preferred to see regular people who were talking about how they were really impacted, to be honest with you. That would have resonated with me. But I mean, I'm just one person. And to me, for Kamala to bring out individuals who were P. Diddy adjacent. P. Diddy adjacent. That's who you bringing out. I would have been so far away from anybody whose name could have potentially been tainted with P. Diddy. I don't want them anywhere near my platform. You know, I wonder what Joe Biden has to say about this Trump victory. Because remember now, Joe Biden was the one who said that he was the only one he felt was capable of beating Donald Trump. He had done it before. And he has to be feeling some sort of way. Now, obviously, I felt like Joe Biden was suffering from a cognitive decline, a mental decline. I mean, and I think at this point, everybody acknowledges that. Most people acknowledge that. Which is so sad, because I said in a previous video too that I think I would have preferred for him to run. If he didn't have declining faculties, I would have preferred for him to run on the Democratic ticket. So I wonder how he and his team are feeling, because he was ousted in the worst way. And it's like, okay, you pushed me out, and what did you get? Nothing. You lost. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Biden voted for Donald Trump. I'm just saying. But I think this election needed to be a very large and decided victory for any of the candidates who would have won. Just so people could say, you know what? The people have spoken, and they have spoken resoundingly clear. For me, Kamala Harris just was not an ideal candidate. She just wasn't. I think she struggled to find her voice. Obviously didn't augur well for her that she was switching up her accents depending on who she was in the front of. People hated that. She struggled to give clear and cohesive and firm responses. She failed to distance herself from Joe Biden, saying when she was asked if there was anything she would do differently, no, nothing that comes to mind. Nothing that she could think of. And so people were like, okay, well, if you wouldn't have done anything differently, I don't know that I have any hope that you're going to do anything differently. I'm not gonna vote for that because I've seen this show before. I didn't enjoy this movie. I didn't enjoy it at all. So I'm not going to vote for you. I'm sure this week a lot of the political pundits will be deconstructing what happened. I think there's going to be a lot of blame. But you know what? The Democrats have no one to blame but themselves. They should have just had an election, elected somebody to the position after Joe Biden decided not to run. I think that would have been more fair. And I think for them, they probably were like, well, she's already the second in command. Let's just put her in there. But that never goes well. Let the people fight it out. Let the people of the party decide who is the best candidate to serve. Shapiro might have been good. We don't know. We'll never know. They put her in there and they have no one to blame. They cannot blame anyone but themselves. She just wasn't ready. I also think the media calling Donald Trump Hitler and a Nazi and a fascist and all these things that folks like Charlemagne, the false god, would be promoting, to me, was not the flex that they thought it was. Because at the end of the day, people were like, these borders are open. I'm paying more in the grocery store. Y'all ain't listening to me. Y'all talking down to me. Y'all allowing these illegal migrants to come in here and just do whatever. I listened to a town hall meeting. This was in Chicago. And a woman was talking about the fact that she basically has to get all kinds of licenses and permits, to operate her business. But she sees a lot of migrants, illegal migrants, just kind of setting up shop, selling food to the public. And they're not shut down by police. You know how insulting that is for someone who was paying taxes in this country? Child, please. I will definitely do a deeper dive when I have better numbers. I don't want to call any numbers because, you know, this is, things are still coming in, but Trump has won. Kamala Harris, I suppose, will give a concession speech or say something by the time this video comes out. So I'm not going to wait for that, but let me know what you think down below. Did you expect a blowout or did you think it was going to be close? I know right now that Donald Trump and his team have their work cut out for them. The honeymoon period will not be long. People will celebrate. But let me tell you something. He's got to get on with the business of this country because that border is a big deal for me. And I'm sure it is for a lot of you at home. So he's got to get to work. He will not be given any grace by a lot of the legacy media. But I could tell you, and I said this earlier, a lot of people have moved away from the legacy media. By the way, I didn't speak on the fact that Washington Post and LA Times decided not to endorse a candidate. And I thought that was a great decision. All those people who resigned in protest, go. Because I don't even think that newspapers should be endorsing any candidate. I have always been of the viewpoint that the newspaper should be impartial. There should be neutrality there. I shouldn't know who you're voting for because you're you're already telling the public, oh, we're throwing our endorsement behind this candidate. Why? So I was happy Bezos cut that off. And if the people don't like it, let them go. Go find another job. Go right ahead. Go and find another job because you should not be endorsing any political candidates. Let the people decide. Down below, if I could hear from Black men, Black women, I welcome all of you to speak. I really do. But I'm targeting Black men, Black women, and Latino voters. I would love to hear from you all, especially because a lot of you were guilt-tripped during this entire election season about your choices. For those of you who said that you were going to be voting for Donald Trump or Jill Stein or, you know, other third-party candidates, because I remember having a conversation with someone about Jill Stein, and I was really feeling a lot of the things that she was saying. And the person said, oh, so you're going to vote for Jill Stein? I said, I don't know just yet. I'm an independent voter. Let me just say that. Even though people like to put me in a category, you can put me in a category. That's fine. I'm an independent voter. So what that means is if the right candidate comes along and is saying the right message, she or he can get my vote. They can get my vote. I'm not aligned to any party. I don't want to be. I like the flexibility of choosing whoever I want to choose. And I remember talking about playing up Jill Stein, Dr. Jill Stein, just talking about the things that she was promising the American people. And I was told, oh, that if you were stupid enough basically to go and vote for this person, that's a wasted vote. And this has been my first election in the United States. And I was really insulted by that, because who I choose to vote for is my choice. That's who I choose to vote for. I have never condemned anyone for voting Republican or Democrat or Green Party or whatever. I don't condemn people for that. That is your personal and sacred choice. That is your right. I'm not going to get involved in that. That's not my business. And I don't expect people to get involved in my business as well. I vote how I want to vote. You vote how you want to vote. But it just gave me some insight into what a lot of the black voters who were voting for third party or when I say third party, like independent or Green Party or Republican Party were going through, because it was like this constant guilt trip. You know, I listened to Steve Harvey's show in the morning. And there were times, and I still love Steve Harvey, I do, but there were times when I just was like, well, who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? Who are you talking down to? Same with D.L. Hewley and Ricky Smiley and Roland Martin. Just disgusting behavior. Talking down to voters, black voters, like you're nothing if you decide to vote for anything other than Democrats. That's cult mentality. That's a cult mentality. So I want to hear from everyone, but I definitely want to hear from the Black and Hispanic voters about what you thought. And like I said, the work begins now. There's no honeymoon period, and I'm just ready for the ball to get rolling. So y'all have an appointment in January. That's when the inauguration is going to be, and I think it's going to be vastly different from the last time that Trump was sworn in. I think you're going to see greater participation. I think you're going to see larger crowds here in Washington, D.C. Anyway, I've gone on very, very long, and there's so much to say, and I know I've probably forgotten everything that I wanted to talk about, but I hope I got my points across, and I will see you all, I don't know, maybe tomorrow, maybe day after, I don't know, whenever I have time to do another video. Also, if you want to support this channel, if you like what I'm doing, please go down in the description box and you can become a member of my channel. You can subscribe if you want to. And I say this, I've said this on several channels, several videos. If you are the type of person who is quick to unsubscribe when I'm saying something that you don't like, please don't subscribe. It's quite fine. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Just watch and move on. Don't subscribe. But if you're somebody who is like, I can disagree with this woman and still stay subscribed, then sure, go ahead. But watch some of the other content too and see if you like what you see. And if you do, then subscribe. But if you have been watching my channel for a while and you want to support this channel and you want to keep the advertisers out of this channel, be sure to become a member of This Bahamian Gyal. And if you'd like to buy me a coffee, because your girl was up all night and this morning and trying to record this video, you can go down and buy me a coffee, which is, you know, always welcome. So just go down, you'll see the link down there. I'm a little groggy, so I'll see you guys next time, and we will continue this conversation because I'm sure there's going to be a lot being said. I'm recording this super early in the morning, and I want to watch The View today. I know a lot of you want to watch The View because I'm sure it's going to be something special. Bye.